Hello, I'm Joe Newmeyer, film critic for New York's WOR Radio and a proud board member of the Annapolis Film Festival, and welcome to the Q&A for Marvelous and the Black Hole, which we are all so happy to have as our opening night film at this year's 9th annual AFF. It's my pleasure now to welcome the film's writer-director, Kate Tsang, and stars Mia Check and Rhea Perlman. Happy to have all of you here. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you to everybody for watching.
Yeah, thank you.
So great to have you. Thank you. It's so entertaining and expertly directed and played and with such a big heart. Kate, talk to us about the origins of the film, the story. I know there's a lot of your own experiences in it. What ideas spurred you to write it and make it your feature debut as a director?
So growing up, I was bouncing back and forth between my parents' home in Northern California and Hong Kong for a bit, and it was a really isolating experience. And I was, a pretty lonely, kind of depressed kid. And at that time, my grandfather came over from Hong Kong to basically take care of me and watch over me. And he was the one person that validated me, saw that I was going through something, and basically made me feel like it was okay. And he would tell me stories at night, like they were fantastical stories that made me feel better and gave me hope about, the world when I was in a dark place. And this film was born from wanting to honor that relationship that I had with him and what he gave to me. And the magic component, I just really loved it as this idea of or storytelling. I didn't know anything about magic at first when I first started this journey, but through doing research with it, I fell in love with it, and also was introduced to this amazing magic community in LA, these female magicians who basically took me in and taught me their secrets and basically introduced me to new friends now. And that was sort of the relationship that I wanted Sammy to feel with Margot, getting to meet her, and then also meeting Margot's friends as well.
Yeah. Mia, your performance is so heartfelt, and you really bring us into Sammy's often funny, often tortured mindset, dealing with her family and coming of age and the loss of her mom and her heartbreak over that, and Sammy finding her own place in the world. She's such a layered character. What were some of the keys to her for you?
Yeah, definitely. Sammy is this very, she's not like, the model minority kind of kid. She's flawed and she's real. And that was the interesting thing, that I've never really played a kid who had been so kind of dark and twisty a little bit. And it was real too. And I think what Kate and I figured out as we started filming, we sat down and we talked about the script. And I was like, is there anything that I should bring? Because I knew it was about kind of like her experiences. So I wanted to make sure that we really hit those key points. And like you were saying, the loss of her mother, I think, is kind of where the core of it all is. That's kind of where most of her hurt and angsty feelings come from. And when she meets Rhea's character, Margot, those feelings kind of come out, and she's able to kind of, how do I say it, resolve those feelings. She's able to find someone who feels kind of like a mother figure to her.
Yeah. Rhea, Margot is such a life force and a delight and an anchor, not just for Sammy in the film, but for us in the audience as well. What were your thoughts when you read Kate's script, kind of were introduced to Margot on the page and began to figure her out?
Well, first of all, I read a script that was beautifully written, and that's, hard to come by. And couldn't believe I was being offered this really wonderful part that, a magician. I assumed that somebody else would be doing the magic and I would just be pretending to do the magic. But that's not how it worked out, because Kate insisted that I actually learned the magic, which was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I have so much respect for magicians. It's really amazing what they do, and they practice endlessly all day long, even if they've known a trick forever. I had a great coach, a magician that Kate introduced us to, named Kayla Drescher. She's excellent. We all went to the Magic Castle, and I loved playing the part of a woman who, became a mentor to a young girl because she understood that crisis from her own life, which is hinted at in this movie, not greatly, but it is there. I think we all know, and she came from Hungary and had a really rough childhood. And I just loved everything about it.
Yeah, yeah. One of the many things that's so enjoyable about the film, Rhea, is that we've all been Sammy at some point in our lives, or maybe still are Sammy in terms of where we are. But Margot is somebody we hope to have as a mentor, or who we want to be, or maybe even who we strive to be, because she has such a lightness that's self-made, self-conjured. Because as we saw in the film, and you just mentioned, her early life was anything but light. So she made a decision as to who she would be in the world, right? And I really like that aspect to her, the fact that she's sort of self-created in some ways, right?
Yes, yes. And it took her a while to come to that,
Mm-hmm.
I think, in her life. You know, it took her a while to get through all the stuff that Mia is going through now, or Sammy's going through now, you know, in the movie and beyond. And, you know, was in danger herself of hurting her, maybe even committing suicide. You know, that's all kind of there. And, but she made it through, but she recognizes other people who are that, especially young people. And this is an opportunity for her. She just instantly takes to Sammy and hopes that she'll come around, and which she doesn't at first, but then she does. And it's such a joy to be able to mentor someone.
Yeah.
I try to mentor my kids all the time. They don't always want that. You know?
Mia, that leads me to think about something else about your character, about Sammy, which is that you portray so well, which is the sense that a lot of young people have. They feel like their decisions impact their families so much. And of course, that's another part of life. But in trying to get their feet on the ground, they have to sort of be aware of how their actions impact, in Sammy's case, her dad, her sister, and her dad's plans to remarry. That's an interesting level to this character, right? Is her kind of understanding about the people around her and how her decisions can affect them, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting. As I was reading the script for the first few times, I started to realize that Sammy was kind of thinking about kind of affecting each of her family members in a different way. And her actions, I don't think she realizes it until a little later in the film. I don't think she realizes that what she had been doing, or what she is doing currently, was had an effect on her family members. And it was just kind of like an interesting experience, kind of getting to the point where it made Sammy realize that, and kind of figuring out like how she's going through her grief and how she's kind of dealing with that, and getting to the point where it's realization, where she's realizing, oh, my family members are being affected by my actions and my behaviors. And so that was definitely an interesting thing to experience as the character.
Yeah. Kate, in addition to Rhea and Mia, you fill the world of the film out with so many intriguing characters and wonderful actors. Leonardo Nam as Sammy's dad, Cannon as her sister, Jonathan Slavin, Lucy DeVito, someone I know Rhea knows very well. Everyone is so great in it. It seems like a magic trick to be able to kind of have so many satisfying story threads in a film, but filling out the world of the film in the screenwriting process and even directing is part of the fun and part of the trick, I imagine, right?
Yeah, I mean, filling this world with people that I really just wanted to spend time with, and also part of making this film was wanting to see people that looked like my family and myself when I was growing up on film. So that was really important to me. And our casting director, Amy Renee, did an amazing job putting together our cast. And the Scoundrels, Margot's crew, they're actually all professional magicians as well. So we tried to cast as authentically as possible when it came to that area.
I love that. And one of the rules of filmmaking that I always sort of love is the idea that you could follow any of the characters in this film and they would have an interesting story as well. You're sort of like, what's going on with his story? Where does he go once he's left Margot's backyard? That kind of stuff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Mia, you've worked so much for a young actor. I'm wondering what surprised you about this film or this story, or maybe even kind of figuring out the character of Sammy? What took you by surprise?
Yeah, like Kate said, it was wonderful to be able to play someone that other kids could relate to, or other people just in general. Because like you said before, we've all had a time where we feel like how Sammy felt. And it was good. It felt really nice to play someone who was real and who wasn't perfect. She wasn't straight A student, and it was authentic. it was the ability to play like a person, not a character, but a person. And that was really wonderful.
Yeah. And Rhea, 4 Emmy Awards, a record-setting number of Golden Globe nominations, part of all of our entertainment lives for so many years. Margot's spirit is so adventurous. What felt new about this film for you?
Oh, well, everything. Yeah, I mean, every film is so unique, you know, every project is so unique. It always feels like an entity into itself, and jumping into a situation with many people that you don't know. And Kate, who this was her first feature, I had seen her short film, which was brilliant, that she won an award at Tribeca. I don't know where else because it was just so great. And I, you know, there's a lot of trust involved in that, and I was just so willing to trust her when she did an amazing job as a first-time director. I mean, as a director of any amount of time, she could handle it, and she always had herself prepared, and she had the answer. She knew what she wanted, which is so important in filmmaking, I think, especially when you're in a low-budget film where you have to do things pretty quickly for very little money. You know, you have to be able to adjust, and she was just brilliant at that.
Yeah. For both you and Mia, was there a time that the two of you kind of spent either kind of before filming or maybe in rehearsal to kind of get a feel for the connection, obviously, between Sammy and Margot and how that should build? Did the two of you kind of find a sort of a way to kind of click in with each other?
You can go, Mia.
Yeah, like I said earlier, we all went to the Magic Castle together.
Yeah.
Me, Kate, and our producer Carolyn Mao, we all went to the Magic Castle and kind of got to see a bunch of different magic acts, which was super awesome. It was definitely a fun way to connect over something. And then we also had a lot of magic lessons together, where we went to Rhea's house and we kind of practiced all the magic tricks you see, or most of the magic tricks you see in the film. And that was something really wonderful. And I think just being together on set, which was such a wonderful thing, we got together and kind of connect as Rhea and Mia, and then bring that connection into the scenes with Sammy and Margot.
Yeah. Rhea, what was a favorite magic trick that you learned? Was there one that you really loved that was your favorite to pick up on?
Well, you know, there was only a couple that I really felt like I could sort of do, but one was, you know, the card trick, of course, which I know has a name, but I've already forgotten it. It's some kind of French drop or something like that. No, that must be a different one. But also what I loved the best was the cigarettes.
Right.
I love doing the cigarettes that, you know, that came out of nowhere and giving them back to Mia.
Yeah. Mia, also let's also speak about Leonardo Nam and how the connection obviously between Sammy and her dad is, because that's the other sort of parallel connection in the film, that in addition to Margot, she sort of has to be able to kind of get to a point with her dad that she hadn't been prepared to do at the beginning of the film. Kind of talk about that connection and how you and Leonardo came to the characters and discussed it a little bit.
Yeah, actually, Leo and I, the first scene we ever filmed together was the scene with the most tension between our two characters. And it was interesting because we had just met, actually. We had really just met each other, and we were like, we have to do this scene where it's already a connection that's been built, and now it's kind of just like really high tension. But the wonderful thing is like Rhea said, on this set, everybody was so willing to collaborate with you and to listen to your ideas. And so Leo and I kind of worked together and kind of figured out like what the connection had been. And we kind of used that as like a starting point for the rest of the scenes, because the scenes were previous to that. We kind of used that as a starting point to, okay, so where were they at this point in time if it led up to that? So it was just like a really wonderful thing to get to work out between them. And it was really natural, actually, because I think both Leo and I were like, how are we going to do this scene? We have just met each other, but we threw ourselves into it, and it actually turned out really well.
Yeah, it provided a nice foundation, obviously, for all these subsequent scenes that may or may not have sort of had a root in that situation, but obviously provided like this nice underpinning for it.
Yeah, it definitely did.
Yeah.
And to add to Mia's story, the reason why the first time they ever met was basically that day on set is because we had another actor who was originally playing Angus, that Mia and Cannon had been doing like chemistry dates with and like had formed a family bond. But at the last moment, this actor had to step away because of a family emergency. And we ended up having to scramble and like find an actor who could take Angus's place within 24 hours of when we were about to shoot. And we were so lucky that we found Leonardo Nam, and he was so up for the challenge and collaborative, as Mia was saying.
Yeah, he's terrific in it, as everybody is. Kate, to wrap up, was there any sort of directing? This is your first feature, as we mentioned. It's such a terrific debut. You did a lot of shorts, but what directing trick did you learn on this film that you think you'll take with you on your subsequent projects? Kind of what kind of stuck with you a little bit that made you say, you know what, spontaneity breeds this, or kind of what kind of ideas will you bring with you to your next films?
Hire people that are smarter and more talented than you, and trust them, because they're gonna make your ideas so much better. Yeah, it's all about the casting and the team you put together.
Yeah. Well, this team is so terrific. The film is so delightful, such a treat, so heartwarming, and it's an honor to have it as our opening film here at the 9th Annapolis Film Festival. Congratulations again, and thank you to all of our fest sponsors, all of our filmmakers, our patrons and attendees. Ladies and gentlemen, Kate Tsang, Mia Check, and the one and only Rhea Perlman. The film is Marvelous and the Black Hole. Thank you all so much for a terrific conversation. Have a great day.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.